Operation Stream: How Russian Forces Attacked from Underground. The Russian-Ukrainian War, which began on February 24, 2022, can rightfully be described as a new kind of warfare. This is not just because of the widespread use of unmanned aerial and naval systems, which have effectively neutralized the power of heavy military equipment both on land and at sea, and made it nearly impossible to conduct operations involving units larger than a company. The main conclusion runs much deeper. This war has proven that templates no longer work. Fighting according to military manuals is no longer feasible. Victory belongs to those who act unconventionally, who can make original decisions, who are ready to take risks. One of the most striking examples of this kind of approach was a mission codenamed Stream, arguably the most unorthodox operation of the entire conflict. In this video, we'll break down the full story, how it was planned, how it was executed, and what came of it. To understand the essence of Operation Stream, we need to start with a relic of the Soviet era, the Uriangoy-Pomory-Uzhhorod gas pipeline. Built in the 1980s, it was a key part of the Soviet energy system, delivering gas from Siberia to Eastern and Central Europe. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, parts of the route became redundant, and some segments were abandoned. One such section runs near the town of Sudza in Russia's Kursk region, right by the border with Ukraine. On August 6, 2024, Ukrainian forces crossed the Russian-Ukrainian border and began military operations in the Kursk region, including an advance near Sudza. They captured several settlements, including the town itself. Among the official objectives of Ukraine's offensive were to establish a deep foothold on Russian territory and to demonstrate new capabilities of the armed forces of Ukraine. By March 2025, Ukraine's large-scale advance was halted, and Russian troops launched a counteroffensive, gradually pushing the Ukrainian forces back and retaking Sudza. By early March, the situation had developed such that one end of an unused 20-kilometer stretch of the Uriangoy-Pomory-Uzhhorod pipeline was under Russian control, while the other end lay in territory held by Ukrainian forces. Russian command saw a unique opportunity in this geographical and tactical configuration and began drafting a highly unusual plan that would later receive the codename Stream. The idea was to use the pipeline to move a group of soldiers who, at the chosen hour, would strike from behind Ukrainian lines and collapse the front. This was an extraordinarily bold decision. The pipeline was never designed for human passage, especially under wartime conditions. Its internal diameter was just 1.4 meters, about 4 feet 7 inches. To move through it, troops had to crawl almost blindly along a metal surface slick with gas residue and condensation. But before any soldiers entered, the pipeline had to be prepared quietly and right under the enemy's nose. Russian Army engineering units carried out covert ventilation. Air was pumped in through technical ports and hatches to flush out remaining gas vapors. In some spots, holes were drilled to let in fresh air. Temporary pockets were set up along the way to store water, rations, and even field latrines. The work was conducted using underground engineering shelters. Tools, supplies, and oxygen tanks were brought in through a network of tunnels. About 3 weeks before the operation began, auxiliary tunnels approximately 500 meters long were dug to reach the pipeline. It was through these hidden access points that the final preparations were made, completely out of sight from surveillance and reconnaissance. To mask the unavoidable noise during preparation, Russian artillery began shelling selected sections of the front line at specific times to drown it out. Once the ventilation system was operational, personnel began entering the pipeline in stages through a side maintenance opening on March 1, 2025. Despite all the precautions, the conditions remained extremely harsh. The pipeline had long been out of use, and toxic residues of methane and other substances were still present. Inside, there was total darkness. Using flashlights was considered a fire hazard, oxygen levels were low, and the ventilation system didn't cover the entire length. Some soldiers carried oxygen tanks, but even those were insufficient. The temperature inside the pipeline was unstable. In several sections, it rose to as high as 104 degrees Fahrenheit. In such confined spaces with poor ventilation, this quickly led to overheating, dehydration, and oxygen deprivation. The water carried by the soldiers was meant to last no more than 2 days. Later, the assault troops had to improvise. They tore synthetic padding from their clothing, used it to collect condensation, and drank that to survive. Many soldiers experienced hypoxia, dizziness, and hallucinations. There were documented cases of unconscious and respiratory complications. To endure the journey, troops stopped in so-called pockets, technical expansions in the pipe where it was possible to straighten up and catch a short break. But even with these measures, the journey was extremely grueling. Estimates suggest it took between 4 and 6 days to move through the pipeline. Throughout that time, the soldiers remained completely isolated. No communication, no way back. They had a mission, and it had to be completed at any cost. The exit was scheduled for the night of March 8th. The troops emerged in an industrial zone on the outskirts of Sudzha, in an area that, according to the intelligence reports, was loosely monitored and considered rear territory. That was the core idea of the operation, to strike from an unexpected direction and collapse the stability of Ukraine's defensive line. The exit was not through the standard hatches of a compressor station, but rather in a less noticeable spot within an industrial area, away from guarded facilities. A section of the pipeline had been pre-cut and camouflaged to look like a technical component. According to footage later released by Russian media, soldiers climbed out one by one through this concealed opening. Once on the surface, Russian troops began securing strong points and logistics hubs. According to the accounts of some participants, the first few moments after emerging from the pipeline were marked by confusion among the Ukrainian forces. The soldiers appeared from an unexpected direction at night without loud noises. Some came out one at a time, unarmed and without insignia, which likely caused hesitation and confusion. This brief window of disorientation proved critical. Russian troops seized several engineering facilities, secured the inner perimeter, and began advancing deeper into Ukrainian positions. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, this disorganized Ukrainian defenses and sped up their withdrawal from Sudzha. The Ukrainian side stated that the retreat from the town had been planned in advance and that Operation Stream did not have a decisive impact on the operational situation. Still, independent analysts believe that the sudden appearance of armed units from within a pipeline likely caused temporary chaos and played a supporting tactical role. The Russian side claims that between 600 and 800 servicemen passed through the pipeline and took part in the subsequent combat operations. However, Ukrainian analysts and independent experts consider those figures exaggerated. Based on the pipeline's narrow diameter, the duration of the journey, and the extreme physical exhaustion it caused, they estimate the group to have been no larger than 100 troops. And that, in their view, would be a more realistic number. As always, the truth likely lies somewhere in the middle. The operation was indeed unprecedented in form, but for those who took part in it, it became a severe trial. Many of the soldiers who crawled through the pipeline suffered serious complications. Some were diagnosed with respiratory damage, chronic bronchitis, and impaired thermoregulation. A rehabilitation program was organized for all troops who'd passed through the pipeline based on a specially designed protocol. After the units returned to the rear, all participants underwent medical examination. Even among those whose X-rays showed no obvious damage, doctors reported wheezing and lung noise. According to medical personnel, these were signs of chemical injury to the respiratory system. Recovery involved a specially formulated IV mixture combining detoxification agents, rehydration solutions, and medications to support lung function. Over 5 days, the troops received intensive treatment, including IV drips, oxygen therapy, and continuous monitoring. As for awards, according to military blogger Yuri Podolyaka, 243 people received the Order of Courage and other state honors for their participation in Operation Stream. According to the official version, this confirmed the operation's recognition at the highest level as an example of personal heroism and unconventional tactical thinking. It should be noted that Operation Stream was actually the second mission of its kind carried out by Russian forces during this war. The first took place near the Zarkaya Akoda resort near Avdiivka in January 2024. In that operation, Russian special forces and assault groups navigated through an abandoned urban sewer line that led into the rear of Ukrainian defensive positions. The route was roughly 2 kilometers long. The conditions inside the sewer were even worse than those in the pipeline. Soldiers had to move through extremely tight spaces, often wading chest deep in sewage and mud, wearing gas masks with minimum water supply and no ventilation. They moved in complete darkness over slippery, hazardous terrain, constantly at risk of collapse or suffocation. Despite all this, the operation ended in success. The group emerged near a fortified Ukrainian zone and struck from behind, helping to break Ukrainian positions and accelerate the collapse of Avdiivka's defense. The success of that underground raid laid the groundwork for the concept later used near Sudzha. Yet, despite this precedent, the Ukrainian command, it seems, failed to adapt. Defensive positions near Sudza, just like those near Avdiivka, were not reinforced to prevent underground incursions. The lack of motion detectors, surveillance of abandoned infrastructure, and proper engineering reconnaissance allowed Operation Stream to repeat the Avdiivka scenario a year later on an even larger and bolder scale. Operation Stream has become a symbol of a new kind of warfare where victory is not achieved through numbers but through surprise, where success comes not from following doctrine but from creative thinking, not from sheer power but from calculated risk and tactical ingenuity. The use of abandoned civilian infrastructure, covert preparation right under the enemy's nose, and the strike from behind, all of this has raised the bar for modern combat operations. As a direct continuation of the approach first tested near Avdiivka, Operation Stream proved that in the 21st century, even a gas pipeline can become a weapon, and geography can become an ally, if approached with an unconventional mindset. And finally, a sobering reminder, Russia remains an extremely dangerous adversary with a technologically advanced and battle-hardened military. Its personnel are known for endurance, high motivation, and experience. Going to war with such a country is incredibly risky, even before accounting for the world's largest nuclear arsenal. Taking up arms against such a nation is a deadly gamble, and that's without considering its unmatched stockpile of nuclear warheads. In this context, U.S. President Donald Trump, who's pushing to end the Russia-Ukraine war as soon as possible and avoid its escalation into a global conflict, appears to be acting with clear pragmatism, especially when contrasted with certain European leaders whose actions, according to many analysts, only add fuel to the fire. But what do you think? Is the American president taking the right approach? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. See you soon.